are that most of you grew up with some sort of a clamshell cell phone back in the day, and surely these evolved into being the cheap dumb phones that you'll even find in a convenience store lately, but that's not really how this form factor started. My first ever was the Motorola StarTAC 3000, back when the rest of the cell phones were significantly larger. The value proposition? Make it a large smartphone when you need it, and then close it and tuck it away when you don't. It's why they were so expensive. It's why the original Motorola RAZR remained the best-selling phone for ages, and it's funny how that is the main selling point for the new breed of clamshells today. This is the new Moto RAZR. Motorola's bet that nostalgia is enough to get its consumers interested in phones again, and also my bet that this was going to be my next daily driver. And this is the Samsung Galaxy Z Flip, the company's second modern foldable, and also proof that nostalgia shouldn't be the only reason why you launch a clamshell. It's probably too early to say that clamshells are back, but I get so many questions about these two phones that it's only fair to compare them. I'm Jaime Rivera with Pocketnow, and this is Moto RAZR versus Samsung Galaxy Z Flip, sponsored by Surfshark. I don't think it's necessary to state the obvious. Nobody needs a foldable smartphone. You're perfectly fine with the flat slab you currently have. But the thing about it is, every time that I'm approached by anybody to show them either of these two phones, they actually find them cool. Nobody really criticizes them, even if I do have to agree that the technology is still a little ahead of its time. Calling a winner in hardware is as easy as it is hard. See, even if both companies have experience making clamshells, I feel the RAZR's design is more deliberate. The textured back gives it more of a grip, while the asymmetrical top makes it logical that the phone was designed to be opened, and the lower chin keeps the weight and the placement of the speaker and the fingerprint scanner. I love this design, which is not the same way I feel about the Z Flip. Samsung's approach is more of what I mentioned in my 24 hours experience video, where it's as if the company turned the Galaxy S10e into more of a foldable. If you're a symmetry purist, this phone is for you, or at least it will be until you start opening it backwards more than once while you get it out of your pocket. The top and bottom glass, only more invitations to the fingerprint smudge mess you won't get with the RAZR, at least from the bottom, because from the top it's almost the same problem. Things get even more interesting when you compare dimensions. You can totally tell that the Z Flip is about 20 grams lighter than the RAZR. Motorola's offering seriously feels like more of a tank, and the Z Flip a little more fragile. While closed, the Z Flip is 7mm shorter than the RAZR, but it's 1mm wider and 3mm thicker. The experience follows suit when extended, with the Z Flip being 5mm shorter, but then 1mm wider, even if thickness in this form is almost the same. Most of the differences, while extended, can be seen in how both phones approach the displays. Motorola clearly focused more on fitting a modern smartphone into its legacy design, while Samsung turned their current successful formula into a clamshell. As a result, the Z Flip has a larger 6.7-inch display versus 6.2, even in a shorter footprint, meaning 82.5% screen-to-body ratio versus 70%. The Z Flip does 1080p plus resolution at 21:9 versus some odd 876p, and we're also talking Samsung's famous dynamic AMOLED versus a POLED on the Moto. I'm not going to bring glass into the argument because Samsung's protective layer over it pretty much means you have the same integrity risk over plastic. But seriously, even that doesn't matter. Samsung still wins a display battle by a long shot. And sure, you can argue that the Z Flip has a crease while the RAZR's hinge design doesn't show you one, but the argument is only valid until you hold them. See, that crease that you don't see on the RAZR, you will still feel as you glide your fingers on it. You get this feeling of some gaps in the internal mechanism, and if you tap the screen, you can even feel a slight separation with the chassis, which actually enables this design. On the Z Flip, while the glass layer is debatable, it does contribute to a completely flat feel everywhere you touch the phone except for the crease. Motorola's approach to the hinge also makes this just an open or closed phone. You can't just choose to keep it slightly open, but then that also means that opening it with one hand is easier, even if just slightly. The Z Flip, on the other hand, has a hinge designed for more than one position. Place this phone on a table, use it for selfies, watch a video, make video calls. It actually gives the impression of being ahead of the curve. pun intended. But then when you close them up, yeah, Motorola wins. I mean, Samsung, what were you guys thinking? This external 2.7-inch panel on the Moto is actually useful, while the Z Flip's fingernail screen is not even informative. Thing is, basic design elements and the outer screen are about the last thing that the RAZR is going to win in this comparison. Take internals, for example. I'd compare the RAZR more to a mid-ranger like the Pixel 3a or less, while the Z Flip is more like a slightly more powerful Galaxy S10. It's got a far better processor, 2 more gigs of RAM, double the storage, a much larger battery, wireless charging, a replaceable SIM card versus eSIM, plus support for more carriers, while the RAZR is a Verizon exclusive. I mean, seriously, the only thing the RAZR has in its favor is the splash resistant, which, yes, is major, but that's about it. And you know, I usually forgive companies for going for mid-range chips because there are some benefits in the battery department. But that's another department where the RAZR does not hold a tune. I mean, the Z Flip will end the day while the RAZR barely scratches it. And sure, both devices have some sort of fast charging, but only the Z Flip has wireless charging. Even if we were to shift the software, this comparison becomes kind of pointless. I mean, sure, the RAZR has a more stock Android approach versus the Z Flip, but well, that's a more stock Android 9 Pie instead of the Android 10 the Z Flip rocks. And sure, Motorola tries to make up for it with its signature gesture navigation at the bottom, though with different gestures when compared to the standard Android 10. The Moto suite also brings gestures that every phone should have to call on the camera or launch the flashlight. Sadly, it also brings an insane amount of bloatware, given its Verizon exclusivity. The Z Flip, on the other hand, is more a Galaxy than anything. This means that if you don't like One UI, this is definitely not your phone. I wouldn't call myself a fan, but I do like its approach to quick multitasking menus. And also, I do wish that we had the Google Feed instead of Samsung's new Daily, but at least it's a way to completely forget that Bixby exists if you disable the shortcut. I would give software to Motorola, but sadly, this device is so late to the Android 10 game that I just can't. Now, regardless of which device you pick, it is always great to match it with some really good VPN capabilities. I believe that everyone should have a VPN for tons of reasons, and a very good, complete, and affordable solution is today's sponsor, Surfshark. It's just $1.99 a month, and the benefits begin with allowing unlimited multiple connections at once, which I haven't seen any other VPN service provide. A VPN allows you to connect locally to different regions, so you don't have to worry about your favorite Netflix series being blocked in your country. You can even avoid price discrimination by companies who bump the prices of plane tickets or hotels depending on where you're browsing from. And then there's browser security, which is a huge issue everywhere. And Surfshark allows you not just to encrypt your connection, but to multi-hop and use 2 different servers for encryption at the same time. For half the price of a latte a month, I don't see any other VPN service offering so much. I highly recommend you give Surfshark a try. Follow the link in the description below and enter promo code Pocketnow. You get 83% off and an extra month for free. And then the other problem with going with a less powerful processor is that regardless of what sensor you use and what lens you bring, the ISP that powers the camera system is also less powerful. I mean, in paper, the RAZR doesn't really look so bad, even with its single shooter versus the Z Flip's dual module, but man, don't you dare compare the photos. Like, I'd call the Z Flip a flagship camera, while the RAZR is, as my son would say, potato quality. I wish I could say the typical, photos during the day are good on both, but even then the RAZR struggles with detail, color, and just about everything a typical phone should do without a problem. I'm not saying that the Z Flip produces my favorite photos, but Samsung has done a fairly good job at toning down saturation and providing some visually pleasing photos in most conditions. I mean, switch over to night mode or night vision from Motorola and wow, the RAZR is just terrible. Completely useless regular shots, and the night vision counterparts are not any better. And again, Samsung is not my favorite, but at least the results are good enough. Same thing with selfies, where Moto's results are what I would expect from a cheap dumb phone, though in that department, Samsung isn't too far behind with the extra softening that the software is doing. And then try out portrait photos and, well, Samsung's results are good, while Motorola thinks that hair is optional on human beings, I guess. Last but not least, compare 4K video and notice the sharpening and grain on Moto's results, while Samsung doesn't just allow you to switch focal lengths, but also provides significant amounts of detail. Flip on over to the selfie camera, and only the Galaxy can do 4K at 60 and with some amazing stabilization. While the RAZR is not just limited to 1080p, but the results are just bad. I don't think I've ever been this disappointed by a camera experience ever, but it has a lot to do with how much you pay for this phone and what you're getting in return. To conclude, I have to admit I walked into this comparison thinking that the RAZR would win. I really wanted to love this phone. But let's face it, there's just no way. Unless you want to buy this device for nostalgia purposes, this really feels like an unfair comparison. Now, don't get me wrong, the Moto RAZR is a gorgeous device. It totally wins for me from a design perspective. My biggest problem is the $1,500 price tag. I mean, why would you pay so much for a mid-ranger just because it folds? And then there's the problem where Motorola is having horrible issues shipping the unit. I had to get a loaner of the RAZR just to be able to film this comparison because my unit is nowhere to be found. And sure, the Samsung Galaxy Z Flip is sold out, but I get the reasons why. I mean, it's more than $100 less expensive. It has specifications that are good enough to compete with any flagship, and as a result, its camera and performance are far better than the RAZR. And sure, its claims for glass are debatable, and obviously the lack of water resistance is definitely an inconvenience, but if you're looking for a clamshell, this is the device to get. The Samsung Galaxy Z Flip may not be the perfect phone, but it totally owns the RAZR in almost everything. Let us know which would be your winner in the comments down below, and while you're at it, follow us on social media, subscribe to our channel for more videos like this one. Also follow me on my personal handles to see me test these foldables out in the real world. Please give this video a thumbs up if you like what you saw. I'm Jaime Rivera, thanks so much for watching. We'll see you on the next one.